underage drinking within the of-age peer setting, and we'll talk about that more. With the UTIL funds, a statewide task force was set up, and it includes state departments, law enforcement entities, prevention-focused agencies, and community coalitions. The task force conducted a needs assessment, and with that it determined that Ohio is a social host state, meaning that it is unlawful to allow those under 21 to possess or consume alcohol on their property, and we'll go into additional details about what social host is. Also, in examining the state and national strategies focused on underage drinking, the majority of programs available at the time focused on minors and didn't really help those that were of legal age in providing education and information to them. Teens' primary access to alcohol was shown to be social outlets, not retail outlets, and that was kind of an aha moment for the task force and the assessment that they did, because they really thought that underage drinking, the source of alcohol, was coming from those retail outlets. So with that, kind of changed focus a little bit and wanted to really look at the social aspect of providing alcohol to minors. And community variations between parents as primary social outlet or other of-age peers kind of shifted a little bit. Initially, within Ohio, it showed that the vast majority of young people were getting alcohol from parents or friends of parents, and with college campus communities, that was changing a little bit. So that's kind of the impetus to institute the BUZZKILL program. So when you're looking at developing or instituting a program in your community, it's important to have a good sense of where your data is. So having a good sense of your community trends is important for the strategies that you deem to implement. For instance, do your community's youth access alcohol from commercial or from social sources? And if it's from a commercial source, that would include a bar, restaurant, carry-out, tavern, etc. And if it's a social source, that could be parents, older siblings, of-age friends, and areas such as that. So just for the sake of today's discussion, we're going to go with the assumption that your data indicates social access is the problem with underage drinking and not commercial sources. We have resources that will help with that for the social sources, such as compliance checks, responsible beverage service training, and areas that are available, but we're going to focus on the social sources for BUZZKILL. And it's also important for you to know your laws. Ohio's laws we have our state laws, and then we have our community ordinances that can kind of help strengthen those. So it's important to know what those are. So you're familiar with making Parents Who Host the best fit for your community, and for the BUZZKILL program, the best fit for your community. Underage drinking laws, again, vary from state and community. So make sure that you know what your laws are related to sales to underage, related to furnishing, and related to social host. And if you don't have a social host ordinance statewide, there might be local ordinances, or it could be an opportunity for you to look at instituting some of those local ordinances. So in Ohio, just to go over our law briefly to see how it kind of fits into the other strategies that we're working on. In Ohio, it is illegal to sell beer or intoxicating liquor to an underage person. So you can't sell it, you can't buy it and then provide to, and you cannot and sell it to them, and you cannot furnish it to them. So that covers the furnishing side. With Parents Who Host, the focus was more on social host, whereas BUZZKILL, social host is still a big piece of it, but furnishing comes into play a lot more heavily there as well. For social hosts, and we got a lot of questions after last month's webinar focused on Parents Who Host about what social host is. So for Ohio, and social host in general, is any adult who allows underage drinkers to possess or consume alcohol on their premises or their property. So it's not necessarily do they have to be present at the time, but if they know that this is happening, then they would be in violation of social host. And they don't have to furnish the alcohol. So if they know that someone under 21 is going to go to their property to consume alcohol, then they would be in violation of social host. For the statewide law in Ohio, no person who is the owner or occupant of any public or private place shall knowingly allow any underage person to remain in or on the place while possessing or consuming alcohol. The knowingly standard has been pretty hard for a lot of our folks, our law enforcement folks, to prove, because those that are being the social host could just say, I was in the bathroom, I didn't know, or I was taking a nap, even though this raging party is happening downstairs. So local communities in Ohio and many communities far outside of Ohio have instituted local social host ordinances that can take the place or be stronger than the state social host ordinances. But for Ohio, if someone knowingly allows an underage person to possess or consume alcohol on their property, then the maximum fine is $1,000 and 6 months in jail. When you're thinking about other areas of kind of tying BUZZKILL with the things that are happening in your community, think about other avenues or assets that you have with your community. If you work with a college or university, are there party registration regulations that require any parties to occur on the university to be registered prior to the party happening? That could give you some power. Also think about some nuisance abatement. Are there ordinances related to trash or noise that could assist you in kind of tamping down some of the problems that you're having within either the community as a whole, or if it's a designated portion of your community? And also look at occupancy. Some states, Ohio is not one of them, and if you're from Oklahoma or Tennessee, and no, we couldn't remember which one, a fire marshal can declare a private dwelling a public dwelling if a certain amount of individuals are present. So look into that as well. And also check out other laws that you might have that you think may not be related to your underage drinking problems, but you might be able to have a tie-in and help with that. So when you're looking at the program that you want to do, we've really tried to be thoughtful with making BUZZKILL really be a program that's appropriate for of-age people, so 21 to 24, 25, who might provide alcohol to their underage peers. So if you're looking for a strategy for your community, think about what the needs of your community are, and with the social access to alcohol, is it primarily through of-age peers or is it through parents? If it's of-age peers, then BUZZKILL would be a better fit than Parents Who Host, which is focused on parents of teens. If your focus wants to be on furnishing and with a kind of a subcurrent of social host, BUZZKILL would be a better fit, whereas opposed to Parents Who Host is more focused on social hosting, and furnishing is kind of the secondary aspect. And also with BUZZKILL, our primary focus is raising awareness of health and safety issues related to underage drinking and kind of having an undercurrent with legal consequences, where with Parents Who Host, just with the logo itself, it has a very strong legal component with kind of a health and safety undertone. So we developed the programming specifically so it could meet the various needs of what a community might experience. When we're looking at BUZZKILL, it began in 2008. The development phase did. It was in development for a year before it started being implemented through pilots. But we were looking at taking some of the benefits and lessons learned from Parents Who Host, adapting the Parents Who Host message into something more appropriate for those of-age peer host areas. So we wanted it for the general adult population. We wanted something that was appropriate for college communities, although we know that not all folks within that age range are within college, so it could be the broader community as well, but wanted to have something that was available more targeted towards colleges. And it was with the University of Findlay in fall of 2008 that really brought this proposal in saying, we have this problem. We've been implementing Parents Who Host from a community-wide level for a variety of years, but we need something that is more appropriate for our college-age students. Because with their efforts with Parents Who Host, they were seeing declines in parents hosting, but an increase in those that are of age that were hosting. And with advertising and persuasion research, it supports targeted messaging, so we didn't want to take something like the Parents Who Host message and put just Students Who Host in its place. So we want to make sure that it was very targeted and it wouldn't dilute the impact of Parents Who Host. Parents Who Host has been implemented in all 50 states and several countries and many U.S. territories, so we want to make sure that there's consistency wherever we go, that there's brand consistency and message consistency. Also, we wanted to really have something that was more targeted to folks within that age range. So we had the slogan and the tagline significantly different than Parents Who Host, and we had the format, but the format and the structure are things that can mirror Parents Who Host. So in terms of look, we wanted something that was very different, but in terms of kind of implementation and styling, we wanted some consistency. So the development began, again, with a proposal from the University of Findlay in 2008. We began focus groups and really evaluating and searching this out more in the spring of 2009. With that, we had two focus groups that we set up. One was in Columbus, Ohio, and the other one was in Athens, Ohio. Columbus is home to not only The Ohio State University, but also Otterbein, Ohio Dominican University, Columbus State University, and several others, Capital University. So there was a lot of variety of college-age students within that area. Athens, Ohio is home to Ohio University, so that was a good fit for them as well, not only to get student perspectives, but also those of-age folks that were not students that were still in that area. In the focus groups that we did, kind of the most common theme is that everyone knew that it was against the law to drink under 21. That doesn't mean that no one that was under 21 drank. They knew what the law was. And most felt safe about hosting parties even with an underage person was present. They had some of the same views that parents might host, that we think it could be safer there, or they're not driving. There's also this pay-it-forward mentality, which was basically, they said that when we were underage, those that were of age provided alcohol to us. So we have a responsibility that we need to pay it forward and continue to kind of pass that tradition on to other students. So that was something that we had to think about. And they also had some pretty consistent myths around what their legal responsibilities were and what they could do to kind of skirt the law. So some of those myths were if they posted signs that no one under the age of 21 was allowed to drink, or you must be 21 to drink, then you would be absolved of any legal liability if someone under your property is drinking. Or if another myth was if you had someone, if you roped off with snow fence the back of your property, then law enforcement would not be able to enter that area because it's then in addition to your home structure. So we also wanted to combat some of those common myths that we saw. And also in the focus groups, one of the biggest takeaways is they did not respond to legally focused messaging or images. Whereas with Parents Who Host, we have the gavel crashing down on the most, and it's very legally focused. That, because they don't see an issue with law enforcement, that wasn't something that resonated with them. They weren't aware of people that were charged with the social host law. They weren't aware of hosts that have been caught furnishing. So that's not something that really resonated with them. And they kind of saw it as overselling, that it may be the law, but if it's not enforced, then it's not something that they're going to really react to. So things related to law enforcement, such as gavels, handcuffs, badges, etc., were not things that were deemed to be appropriate. Also, without having a real concern with legal, it was an opportunity to focus more on the health and safety. The majority of those that were in the focus groups were unaware of the social host law. They were not concerned about being prosecuted because they weren't familiar with any of their friends or know of anybody that had been prosecuted under the state social host law or for local ordinances. And they thought that if there were a problem, only minors would get in trouble. So they had no knowledge of there even being a social host law, let alone whether or not they would be enforced. They were not aware of the liabilities, not only the legal liabilities from the social host standpoint, but liabilities related to intoxicated guests, falls, disputes that might break out, and related violence that might incur, damage to their neighbor's property. These are all things that were not on their radar, and they didn't realize that that'd be something that they'd be responsible for. And for those in just having the conversations, if there were guests that were intoxicated, it was kind of a joking thing and not something that was taken very seriously. It was, oh, they drank too much. It's funny. So really working on kind of changing those attitudes was a focus for BUZZKILL. And also, many of the folks that we talked to didn't have a sense of where to get help. So if they were concerned about the intoxicated guest, they were aware that alcohol poisoning can occur. They didn't know what to do about it. So that leads for opportunities with BUZZKILL to kind of raise that awareness as well. And once educated about the health and safety aspects, most showed more interest in the BUZZKILL information as well as areas to kind of make changes within their communities. So with the BUZZKILL Focus, again, we wanted to replicate the success of Parents Who Host in a similar program in terms of implementation and style, but very differently from look and some of its execution. For instance, with Parents Who Host, there's a lot of information that's in paycheck stuffers where parents might receive paychecks more than a college student who, even if they're working, then it's probably direct deposited. Parents Who Host focus a lot on newspaper articles and things that are more targeted towards parent populations that are more likely to read that, as opposed to a BUZZKILL person who would not be likely to do that. So looking at other areas to kind of get that message through were considered. Also looking at educating of-age peers about the health and safety and legal consequences of serving alcohol as social hosts to underage students. Social hosts and for furnishing. Again, the focus is health and safety with that legal undercurrent there. And look at impacting college and community sectors with environmental factors which influence social hosting on college campuses and within communities. So within the program, we want to have an environmental strategy that will focus on not only impacting the attitudes and behaviors of the people that are in the community for the time. With college students, they're in for 4, 5, 6 years, and then they move on. So it would need to be something that is more systemic and would have longer lasting change than something that was just an education-based thing for the students. So with the legal consequences, want to make sure that they are aware of what the legal responsibilities were. Again, this is something that was funded with Enforcing Underage Drinking Laws funds, so we want to make sure that the legal component is addressed so we can be mindful of that, and also to make sure that the community folks in our target populations really understand what their legal ramifications are, but again, the focus is health and safety. So if they were to break the social host law, they would be guilty of a first-degree misdemeanor. This is all based on Ohio law, up to 6 months in jail and or a $1,000 fine. This is something that none of the students knew about that in the focus groups that I observed, that officers can take away and confiscate any property that was involved in the offense. So it would be any alcohol that would be involved, money, or if they were playing beer pong, they could take the beer pong table, the ping pong balls, everything else that was related to that offense. And if someone who was at their party consumed alcohol and they went out and in turn damaged someone else or damaged other property, they didn't realize that they would be responsible. Another piece that was kind of eye-opening was that there's significant attorney fees that could also factor into this, ranging from $2,000 to $25,000, and depending on the offense, it could go much higher than that. So wanted to kind of raise awareness from that from a legal perspective, but also wanted to look from consequences that aren't necessarily tied strictly to law enforcement. So we had consequences that were impactful of immediate consequences and those that would impact the future. So depending on the type of scholarship that the student has, if they're assuming they're students, they could lose their scholarship. Depending on the student code of conduct, they could be on academic probation. They could be suspended from their team, again, depending on what their student code of conduct is, or if there was an athletic code of conduct outside of the student code of conduct. There could be elimination of some of those things that could impact their ability to maintain their standing within their school. Also, if they were to be charged with the misdemeanor under social host, then they could be denied a professional license, especially for those that are working in the areas of education, criminal justice, and healthcare. They'd have a permanent record for social host misdemeanors. They are not expungible in many cases, so that would be permanently on the record. And if they're employer does a background check, then that's something that could show up there as well. So just kind of wanting to raise awareness to that. Again, the main focus, though, is health and safety. So just kind of raising awareness of what assault looks like related to underage drinking, what sexual abuse looks like related to underage drinking, academic problems, death, and injury. The resources are in the BUZZKILL materials are all based on national statistics. So if you have things that are more specific to your community or your campus, then by all means, please use those. We just use the national data because that's kind of our national outreach, but we know that the more zeroed in and targeted the data set is, the more impactful it is for communities. And don't think about some of the other problems that might relate to that. So such as underage drinkers go to more extremes. We want to make sure that people are health and safety for the underage drinking side, but we also want to make sure that those who would serve as hosts are going to be healthy and safe. And we know that when folks drink, they lower their inhibitions, so more drinkers are out of control. There could be more health and safety risks to their friends. They could be involved in fights. They could cause fights with the friend or with other people that they're not associated with. That kind of friends can be drawn into that. Personal property can be damaged. If you're hosting this party, then things that are in your home could easily be damaged. And your neighbor's going to call the police, which then you have the police come by. The police are not going to be overly happy, and that's not really helping that town-gown relationship between the students and the larger community. So when we're looking at BUZZKILL, our target audience is those who are of age or nearing the hosting age peers. So they would be peers of those who would be under 21, who might provide alcohol to those who are under 21. And then the secondary kind of target audiences are those that could help get that message out, such as folks in the Greek system, landlords. Parents can be very strong influencers in what their students do, so making sure that they can be contacted or involved in that. So the secondary targets are those who are going to be message givers, who are going to be gatekeepers, and people who play a key role in addressing this issue either within the individual or within the community. So we want to be thoughtful about that and other areas that we can kind of get that in. With evaluation, or with BUZZKILL, we did do a program evaluation from 2010 to 2013. Kent State University Public Health Research, we contracted with them to do that evaluation. And just due to funding and kind of the timeline, the evaluation for BUZZKILL was not as nearly as extensive as it was for Parents Who Host. We did get some promising results, though. The design for the evaluation was both qualitative with a pre- and post survey, or quantitative with a pre- and post survey, and it was qualitative through interviews of students, faculty, staff, and other key leaders. For the evaluation, it was all done on four-year four-year colleges. So the larger community was not involved in the evaluation because we focused specifically on colleges in our initial design of the program. For the evaluation, it was web-based, so it was through SurveyMonkey. Again, there was a pre- and post test to connect the responses and see changes in trends. Looked at providing an incentive. We had incentives that varied by school. Some of them were a free coffee, there was free smoothies, gift certificates that were available, and they were disseminated in a variety of ways, whether there was a list at the coffee shop that they could go and get their name checked off of, or if there was a designated time, a place in the campus where their voucher was distributed. So it varied a good deal from based on the schools. So when they're looking at the questions for the surveys, the questions that they were asked were related to demographics, social host knowledge, perceptions of local law enforcement, knowledge of the BUZZKILL name to see if the branding was making an impact, and alcohol use measures. So some of the sample questions were related to knowledge is, I can be under the age of, or I can be under, I'm going to read this, so apologies. I can be charged under the Ohio Revised Code for knowingly allowing people under 21 to drink alcohol. That was a question. Another getting to knowledge was, I can be charged under the Ohio Revised Code for purchasing alcohol for a person under 21, and having sex with someone who is drunk is not sexual assault. So those were questions related to knowledge. And there was also questions related to attitude as well. So a question related to attitude was, if I get caught hosting a party where there's those under 21 drink alcohol, I won't get in trouble because the law is rarely enforced. So the research report as well as the survey questions are available on the drugfreeactionalliance.org website under the BUZZKILL program tab. So that information is there as well as those specific questions. So we did our focus groups, we began our evaluation design, and we also were working through our process with our schools. Some things that we learned that were this is new to us, especially working with evaluation on a college campus, is the IRB processes vary greatly for each school. It is helpful to know that if you have an approved IRB on one campus, then you can use that as kind of a place to say, hey, X university, Y university has already signed off on this and they're okay with it. So that can kind of move you along a little bit. Students' responses varied widely. The surveys were distributed through the campus email, and one campus, their students just do not check their campus email. So the responses were extremely low there, and that was a challenge that we had. Also a challenge is pre- and post-test reliability. There are indicators. The surveys are anonymous, but there were codes set up so we could be able to identify the person that took the pre-test and with the post-test, such as the month of their year, the last 4 digits of their social security number, and the zip code where they were born. For some reason, while the questions were all pretty standard and it should be something that students would know, at least from the pre-test to the post-test, they didn't gel up very well. Also, the incentive was approximately $5, and that wasn't sufficient in a lot of areas to get folks to respond. So if you were to look at doing this within your community, you might want to think of other strategies that would help with that. Another consideration is school calendar. With the IRB process and with the school calendar, in many cases schools begin in August and they're done at the end of April, so that can kind of shrink a window, especially when we're working on our UTIL funds and we weren't able to begin activities until the beginning of June. Well, schools aren't, or I'm sorry, the beginning of July. In many cases, schools aren't in class until the beginning of August. We have the IRB process that we have to do and all the other things that kind of related to that. So certainly think about what your communities are and some of the challenges that you might experience with that. The results were positive, though. We saw an increase in knowledge of state law related to social hosting, related to furnishing, and related to responsibilities of sexual assault. They had difficulty understanding what social host was. Again, our main focus on getting the message out was health and safety and also talking about the legal, but we didn't go into great detail about actually identifying social host is this. So we didn't really define what social host was. So initially in the evaluation, when it asked about social host, respondents didn't make the connection between the information that they had received and the term social host. And while respondents knew about the law, they were still unaware about the specific details. So they knew that it was under or against the law for anyone under 21 to be provided alcohol through furnishing or through social host, but they didn't know of the $1,000 fine or the 6 months in jail. So those specific details weren't something that carried through. And the IRB process is the process that each school, it's the internal review board that is done for any type of evaluation that's done. So any school that does this, there's an IRB process and protocol that's set up. So that's how they identify that a survey is not going to harm any of the students that would be taking that survey. So it's a measure in place to protect students. Lessons learned that we had from the pilots is, again, it's important to focus on this health and safety aspect with kind of the undertone of legal. Beware of message confusion. We had one campus that had a strong and had instituted for a long time stop at the buzz. So if students were of age and drinking, their harm reduction strategy was to stop at the buzz, which kind of impacted the BUZZKILL program then. So think about other things that would be happening within your community that might confuse the message or not be a good fit. So be mindful of that. And like with all messaging, you need to make sure that there's large enough and varied enough distribution of the message so that it can reach at a population level to make that population level change, especially with raising awareness and definitely with getting to that behavior change. And again, that's consistent with any other messaging that you would do. And if you have something that, if you're leaning into either your furnishing or your social host law, if you've got your party hosting or your party license that you have to have pre-registered, make sure that you are working with campus and community law enforcement. One school that I talked to began distributing all of the BUZZKILL material throughout the community, but didn't talk to law enforcement about it. So law enforcement were then getting a lot of questions about BUZZKILL and what the legal responsibilities were, and they had never made the connection to first check with law enforcement before distributing the message in the community, and especially talking about what law enforcement will and will not do. So it's good to have those connections in place. And incorporate students into your efforts, particularly when we're looking at a program message, a program designed for those that are in that 20 to 24, 25-year-old range. It's important to have those involved in the message design and the message distribution. And Kelleen and Jake will talk more about this and some of the things that they've done within their community. So for this, I will turn it over to Jacob and Kelleen.
Thank you, Derek. And hello, everyone. This is Jacob Ward with Kelleen Weber, the Director of Alcohol, Drug, and Wellness Education at the University of Mount Union. And we are going to talk to you about our BUZZKILL initiative that we did on campus. So there's the title page explaining who we are again. Some basic information about the university as a whole. We were founded in 1846 and are a 4-year private liberal arts institution affiliated with the United Methodist Church, and we have held consistent top rankings from U.S. News and the World Report. The university's mission statement, which is instilled in all of our students, is to prepare students for fulfilling lives, meaningful work, and responsible citizenship. Our campus location is located in Alliance, Ohio, about 70 miles south of Cleveland and 80 miles west of Pittsburgh. We have a 115-acre campus with an additional 142-acre nature center about 10 minutes off campus. The student community, we have about 2,200 undergraduate students, a 50-50 mix, representing 31 states and 22 countries. About 4% of international students are in our student population, and 12% American students of color. So the implementation of our BUZZKILL initiative on campus is the following slides. Before we start, there's me, Jacob Ward. Kelleen told me to sing my own praises, otherwise she'd interject and do it herself. And so I'm Jacob Ward. I'm a junior art education major at the university, president of several organizations, regular scholar. I'm in the concert choir, everything. Our BUZZKILL was a student-led organization with a great committee of about 10 students. They helped me out so much. And we worked with Kelleen's office with everything that we did. The following slides are our information saturation campaign that we did, starting with the poster saturation. Every 2 weeks, 1 of 6 posters were posted in residence halls, academic buildings, the Greek houses, community establishments. Kelleen and her graduate assistant attacked faculty doors with the posters and just hung them up just every 2 weeks to keep them fresh. Information cards were also sent out. We stuffed mailboxes. We put them in all the campus centers. We handed them out to establishments. We gave them to pizza places to put on their pizza boxes. All of that stuff just to get the pamphlets out to students wherever they would be. We also painted the campus rock, which is located in a central location on campus, so most students would see it no matter what time of day it was. We had bulletin board competitions within the residence halls to see who could create the best BUZZKILL bulletin board. These are mostly located in freshman residence halls and some upperclassmen halls, but the following are a couple examples of those bulletin boards. We also had flyers and posters that we put up in bathrooms all across campus, in the residence halls, everywhere. We did door hangers for the upperclassmen housing. A couple of active programs that we did group beer with facts on the cups that we handed out, minute to win it games with beer goggles, and we had a self-defense class that we hosted for students. As you saw before, this slide was bag distribution. Go back there, a couple slides. Bag distribution. Two prominent athletes were asked to pass out the bags, so we got that section of the student body involved to see that they were on board as well as we were. There was a water bottle distribution. There's Kelly holding the water bottle, speaking to students. Students signed pledge sheets for that. Other contacts, we sent emails and spoke to all of the Greek life organizations. I went and spoke to all the fraternities with another member of our group. Twitter and Facebook accounts were set up. The university's webpage also has a social hosting tab on it. We educated integral groups on the campus. The preview and orientation staff, as well as residence life, were given all information about BUZZKILL and everything that we have to talk about social hosting. Other peer educator groups run by Kelly's office, Choices and Gamma, also worked with us. We helped with De-Stress Fest at the end of each semester, Lucky Duck, Chillax, spring break situations. Community efforts, which were sort of tackled by Kelly and her graduate assistant at the time, Eric Young. They would go and talk to the Stark County Sheriff's Department, the Alliance Police Department, Safe Commuting Coalition, community coalitions everywhere, pizza boxes. We gave the flyers to grocery stores to stuff in their bags, all of that. Press releases to the Alliance Review. Every year this goes out, and they usually put it in just, again, to bridge the gap between community and the university. 2011-2012 school year, we had a pledge table and distributed 300 free T-shirts to those who signed the pledge. We also spoke with students on the line about BUZZKILL and social hosting laws. There are pictures of the massive piles of T-shirts that we had, as well as the pledge table. So what worked well with our initiative? Changing information every 2 weeks. It kept it fresh without bogging down the students, so they didn't look at it and be like, oh, there's another BUZZKILL thing. No, they just were interested in what BUZZKILL was. The biggest success we had was the T-shirt program we did, because who doesn't love a free T-shirt? Lessons learned. At the University of Mount Union, some fall weather makes parties happen, of course. People want to go out beginning of the year, want to say hi to their friends, and freshmen are orienting themselves to campus social life. So nipping it in the bud, we start early in the year, start in the fall, talk to the Greeks and the athletes, as well as the freshmen, on what not to do. Accommodating schedules of everyone, especially law enforcement and other campus offices, was extremely difficult and continues to be. In general, lesson learned, students are not aware of social hosting laws and lack knowledge on potential legal consequences. So they sort of know what BUZZKILL is and what we're about, but not really. My biggest thing about telling them was we're not anti-drinking. You can drink in moderation, you just can't social host. Giving away T-shirts and pens, of course, everybody loves free stuff. So that works the best. Initiatives and things, incentives. So, anybody have questions?
Okay, and I will talk a little bit more about some of the resources that we have available through Drug-Free Action Alliance. Thank you, Jacob and Colleen, for your input. And for those of you who have questions about either any of the information that I've covered so far or what Jacob's spoken about, please ask that question into the questions panel of your navigation pane on to GoToWebinar, and we will address that shortly. So looking at some of the resources that are available, as the pilot, University of Mount Union and our other pilot groups received these resources, and it's available for membership under drugfreeactionalliance.org/buzzkill. You can become a member, much like you can with Parents Who Host. Parents Who Host and BUZZKILL are two separate memberships. But these are some resources and areas to kind of focus into. So we have strategies designated per segment of your campus or community. So we've got strategies for campus, businesses, law enforcement, students, looking at the medical community, social services, and other areas that could helps promote that message. This is the list of the resources that we have available. It's broken into 3 sections, implementation and planning tools. So if you're interested in implementing the BUZZKILL program on your community, there are resources that can help you do that, like the strategies I just spoke about, resources for law enforcement to help make the case for why they should help you in your efforts, because helping you will in turn really help them in the long run, because they'll have less alcohol-related problems. Media tips. There's information about the Ohio Liquor Control Law. There's a PowerPoint presentation for communities interested in getting that message out to community collaborators. There's a description of the program and some underage drinking prevention resources. And then for things that are ready to use or that are customizable, everything's downloadable, so it's easy to access. There's healthy, safe, and legal issues. So when you're talking to various groups, if you're looking at a fraternity, for instance, then and they've had an issue with sexual assault, then that might be an area that you can kind of hone in on to make sure that they are understanding of what their responsibilities are and they're more knowledgeable about the impact that alcohol has with sexual assault. Also looking at newsletter articles, getting the message either spread out through newspapers or campus papers, or also looking at online blogs, using social media such as Twitter, Facebook, other outlets. I know University of Mount Union did tweets and get that information out to their students through social media. The student commitment, which Jacob talked about, which is a sample, just a commitment to say that they will not host underage drinking parties, and really trying to focus with this message of the target audience here of the age of 21, so we don't want to have that no-use message, but making sure that if they are choosing to have a party and they're serving alcohol, that they know what the responsibilities that they have as someone that's above the age of 21. And it's also a good opportunity to kind of tie in some of that low-risk drinking information so they're knowledgeable about that as well. So we're making not only those who might be under 21 more healthy, but we're maintaining the health of those that are of legal drinking age. And also, which is most popular, is the print-ready artwork. So the program logo is available in both JPEG if you're going to do up your own newsletter, or if you wanted to do a billboard, then that would be available in the vector or high-resolution artwork to help with that. Other materials that we have available through Drug Free Action Alliance, Jacob made mention to some of the posters that they had used. We've got posters, window clings, stickers, and acrylic cups. These things are available that you can order. If you want to produce your own, then you're most certainly to do that as well. We try to make it available so it can be at a lower cost than what many communities would have to do if they were to produce it themselves. But if you can do it locally, then please feel free to do that. And now we'll turn it over to the question section. Allison, can you field the questions for us? Allison, I cannot hear you.
Derek, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you. I feel like we're doing a Verizon Wireless commercial.
And not one, I'm sorry. So yes, we do have a few quick questions, and others can come in while I'm fielding these questions to Derek now. So first question, if you could just go back and clarify the difference for Sheila between furnishing versus social hosting.
Absolutely. Furnishing would be providing alcohol to a person that's under the age of 21. Social hosting is different in that alcohol does not have to be provided. That's separate, but it's just providing a place for an underage drinker to drink alcohol. So for instance, if I had an apartment and I was the lessee of the apartment and I had a party, if people brought their own alcohol, I'm not providing it to them, I would still be a social host and being in violation of the law, even though I'm not actually furnishing it to them. So there's two areas of the law that could be impacted. There's the furnishing side if I'm actually the one giving alcohol, and then there's the social host side if I knowingly allow underage drinking to occur on my premises. And it doesn't have to be your own premises, like with the apartment example. As long as you're the lessee, then you would be responsible for that.
And Derek, if I can add to that clarification, social hosting is not just about knowingly allowing them to consume, but even just to possess on property that you need to have control over.
Yes, thank you.
So whether they possess or consume. Sheila also wanted to just make sure she didn't mishear you about having sex with someone who is drunk or intoxicated and whether or not that constitutes sexual assault. Can you clarify where the U.S. Attorney General come down on that?
Yes, I think I just read from one of the questions that was in the survey, so that might have been where it was kind of lost in translation. That was part of the questions that were in the evaluation for the BUZZKILL program, and sexual assault is you can certainly be charged with sexual assault if someone is intoxicated. So yeah, that's definitely against the law, but the question was that it was not against the law within the example of the evaluation survey. So that was just a segment of the questions that were in the evaluation piece.
Great. And Vivian asked a question about national websites or resources you're aware of to search out state-by-state laws related to social hosting as well as other underage drinking. I was thinking about APIS.
There's the APIS website, and Allison, can you tell me what APIS stands for, because I can never remember?
Alcohol Policy Information System.
And that's apis.org?
I always just Google Alcohol Policy Information System because there's some other APIS-y things out there in Google search that'll trip you up.
So, and APIS is really the best place.
You can put it on map and just click on the state you want to learn about, and it also has more detailed information on social host laws and different things that can be in that law, though it is state by state. That's not a place for the social ordinance information. And there is a question about a local social ordinance, and if the state has limited to no law, what would we recommend that folks could do on the line to get a social host policy in their city?
That is a great question, and this provides a good opportunity for a shameless plug for us. We are hosting the Midwest Alcohol Policy Summit, so we're looking at various alcohol policy related items such as social host and other things that can kind of help with that, looking at alcopops and other things that may be happening. So if you're available to attend, it's April 1st to focus on law enforcement and colleges, and April 2nd and 3rd looking at really making the case for alcohol policy and for some things that you can do within your community. We've also worked with the Coalition for Drug-Free Greater Cincinnati to develop a toolkit for social host. And if you're interested in that toolkit, you can email me at dlongmire@drugfreeactionalliance.org. And I'll also put my contact information on the website there. So if you email me, and actually I can just email the social host toolkit, the link to that out to everyone on the call, and we can email that to you. And it has examples not only from Ohio, but I believe from also California, of communities that were successful in implementing local ordinances related to social host.
Great. And just an FYI also, Carolyn also just put this in as I was thinking about it. UDECT, the Underage Drinking Enforcement Training Center, has a great deal of information about both underage drinking as well as state-by-state information, and I believe a sample social host ordinance on that website, which again is the Underage Drinking Enforcement Training Center. The other website we mentioned, folks have asked for us to repeat it, is APIS, which is the Alcohol Policy Information System. A few other quick questions that are content related before we get to some that are more logistics related. The toolkit that you talked about, Derek, I don't know if that's something that we could email out to folks or how they can access the toolkit that Cincinnati developed, if you could repeat that.
Yep, I will email that out when we do have the recording of because the session's been recorded, so I will have that once our tech people take care of that and get that to our website. I will email that out along with links to the UDEC website and to the APIS website. And so you'll have all of that information, so you can either use yourself or pass on to your friends. And I will also include the PowerPoint from today as well.
Great. And Helen asked if there was funding available, and I assume she means from us to implement BUZZKIll, or if there's other funding were available that could be used for such purpose.
Helen, that is a wonderful question, and BUZZKIll was developed with UTIL funds. However, UTIL is kind of petering out, so the funding is not available, at least within that realm. You can certainly check within your community to see what local resources may exist. BUZZKIll and Parents Who Host are no longer funded through the UTIL funds, and Drug Free Action Alliance is able to continue the programs through the $50 fee for the member center and through the proceeds from the sale of some of the supplemental items that we sell, as well as trainings that we do. So the BUZZKIll program itself, at least from the Drug Free Action Alliance, is self-sustaining, and those resources help us to be able to help you all as you look to implement the programming within your community.
Great. Another quick question for either Derek, you, or this might be a place that Colleen and Jacob could help us out. How did you garner support from campus law enforcement and public safety? We have a local university that is resistant to partner. That was from Abigail.
And Jacob or Colleen, do you want to address that?
Could you just repeat the question real quick?
Just as basically a question about how to get local law enforcement as well as campus law enforcement on board and partnering around this issue.
Yeah, we at the University of Mount Union, we really didn't have any problems. Campus security and my office, the Office of Alcohol, Drug, and Wellness Education, work pretty well together. And so asking them to give us support was never a concern. Now, working with the local law enforcement became a little bit trickier because of time and schedules. But when we called upon them and asked them to provide support to our efforts, there usually was no problem. Additionally, when we were handing out posters or information cards, we could take them to the office, and they were more than happy to receive them. So sometimes we would go out of our way to deliver information to them instead of asking them to come to us, and that seemed to help somewhat as well. But overall, we have a wonderful police department and an amazing campus security system, and they're more than willing to work with us.
Great. And Colleen, while we've got you and Jacob hopefully still there, Stephen asked a question that I believe is related to stuff that Jacob presented about the Minute to Win It, and was it prevention related?
The Minute to Win It program, we had it set up so that one contestant did it without the beer goggles and the other had to perform the task with the beer goggles in the same amount of time. So just to show the impairment that it was, that alcohol gives you. So that was sort of a prevention technique by showing the difference in time that it took to complete the task.
We incorporated quite a bit of information, education, and prevention throughout that program.
Excellent. And one last content piece before we get to some logistics, just a point of a reference. Joan had mentioned that in agreement with Derek that, of course, you have to be sober to give consent for sex, and that there's some more information about that available at www.rain, like it rains from the sky, but with two N's, RAINN.org, for some more information. And I know there's some things, I believe, on the U.S. Attorney General's site as well that are referenced on one of our posters or fact cards from BUZZKIll. It looks like it's 2 o'clock, and based on the questions have been tapped out except for some logistical questions. Derek, if you can review for everyone again where things will be posted, where things have been posted from past webinars we've done that are programmatic each month, as well as whether certificates will be available and what you'll be sending out via email.
Absolutely. For the email, I will send a link to the recorded session, and I forgot to hit the button, so it's going to be about 5 minutes late. Also, I will send the PowerPoint presentation along with links from the Underage Drinking Enforcement Training Center website, the Alcohol Policy Information System, the APIS website, and through RAIN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Have links to all of those, as well as the Social Host Toolkit. As for CEUs, since the focus of the webinar is effectively implementing a specific program and not gaining information related to a topic, such as reducing underage drinking, we're not permitted to provide CEUs, so that's not something that we can do. But hopefully, this has given you a lot of information and empowered you to kind of think about what your community is, and if social access or if underage drinkers are accessing alcohol through their of-age peers, then this might be a good program for you. And really to look at what your needs of your community are, because if that's not the case, then BUZZKILL isn't the right fit, and you want to find something that's most appropriate. I will also be sending out a SurveyMonkey survey to everyone to get a sense of how we can continually improve. This is a series, and each month we have our webinar series. The next month, on January 14th, we have the Big Bull Vote, which focuses on the alcohol advertising during the Super Bowl and the impact that that has on middle school and high school students. So hopefully you can join us on January 14th to participate in that webinar. And if you're unable to, then you can also get the recorded of it later. And Allison, do we have any other questions?
We do not.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time, and thank you again to Jacob and Colleen for taking your time out of your very busy schedule. This is finals week for Jacob, so he has dedicated a lot of time for us, and we cannot be more appreciative of that. So thank you both so much for your time and your commitment, not only for today, but for all that you've done to help promote the BUZZKILL program on your campus.
You're welcome.
And that's all that we have for today. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact me at Drug Free Action Alliance, 614-540-9985, extension 16, or D. Longmire at drugfreeactionalliance.org. And when I send these things out, it usually takes a few days to get the information to our website. So when that's available, I will email that out. And you can access all of our webinars on our YouTube channel that you can access from the drugfreeactionalliance.org website. Thank you again for all of your time, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and we will talk to you next year. It's exciting to say that. So thank you all. Have a great rest of 2013.